What's up everyone, it's Bones here. In today's video, I'll be finishing the trio of my videos in which I'll be covering the upcoming decks from Power of the Elements that are seen to be changing the meta for the foreseeable future. In order to get people well prepared for this format, and I know that Exosisters aren't necessarily a deck coming out of this set as they have older support, but the support from Power of the Elements is supposed to be what kind of solidifies their spot as that anti-meta choice, and I do have my thoughts on that as I'll speak on that later in the video. But I'm gonna start by reading the cards here so that you can familiarize yourself with the archetype, as we see about 4 or 5 different Exosister cards in hand, and the first one is Vadis. You can pay 800, choose one Exosister monster from your deck, then take one other Exosister monster from your deck that is mentioned on that monster, and special summon both, but shuffle them into the deck during the end phase. Also, for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Exosister monsters, and you can only activate one Exosister Vadis per turn. Then we'll get onto the monsters with Sophia here, and I want to point out that all the older Exosister monsters, besides the new one, Malpha, we'll go over that one later, have a little effect here which is all the same, except that while they all draw 800, or while they all gain 800, Sophia draws 1, Ellis happens to special summon itself from the hand, and it can gain 800 after that. So while it's not necessarily the same, they do have those gain 800 life point little additional effects, as well as they also all have this effect here where if your opponent moves a card or cards out of either graveyard except during the damage step, you can special summon from your extra deck one Exosister Exceed monster using this face-up card you control as material. This is treated as an Exceed summon. You can only use each effect of Ellis once per turn, and that's kind of the same for Sophia here, as you can see, except that she draws 1. And then for the Exosister packs, as you can see, both players have it in hand here. During the main phase, pay 800 life points, add 1 Exosister card from your deck to your hand, except Exosister packs. Then if you added a monster by this effect, you can special summon it. If the other Exosister monster mentioned on it is on your field or in your graveyard, you can only activate 1 Exosister packs per turn. And then for the last card here, Exosister Litania, and as I read this card, I'm going to explain how this kind of combos with this, even though it'll be kind of obvious. So if all monsters you control are Exosister monsters, 1 minimum, pay 800 life points, then target 1 card your opponent controls or in their graveyard, banish it. Then you can apply one of these effects. Immediately after this effect resolves, Exceed summon 1 Exosister monster using monsters you control, or if you XYZ summon previously this turn, you can banish 1 card your opponent controls. You can only activate 1 Exosister Litania per turn. So as you see, Litania has the ability to Exceed summon on your opponent's turn, while Vadis can bring the monsters out for you. So that is kind of a cool way for the deck to play on your opponent's turn without having to use hand traps or its own monsters. The last thing I'd like to mention about the hand is the variety of hand traps, as you see, the deck can play, but more importantly the fact that Shifter is here, and this is a deck that can make playing with your graveyard a punishing thing to do. And quite frankly, the deck doesn't care about its graveyard, so having the Shifter is just a warning to people who think that if Flunder somehow gets hit on the next ban list before this format starts, Shifter is not gone. So to start with the replay, we'll see the normal summon of the Sophia here, as he's going to special summon the Ellis with its effect as he controls an Exosister monster. Then he can use the Sophia to draw 1 card, and now he can Exceed summon into the first rank monster that we'll see, Caspitel, and it cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster special summoned from the graveyard, and you can only use each of the following effects of Caspitel once per turn. If this card is Exceed summoned using an Exosister monster as a material, and I believe all of the Exceed monsters have this material, I'll read them over anyways, but neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard for the rest of this turn. You can detach one material from this card, add one Exosister monster from your deck to your hand, and I know that the other ones have similar effects to this also. So we'll see the effect of Caspitel here go off, as he's going to add the Malpha. Malpha is the new Exosister card that's coming out in Power of the Elements, or the new monster rather, as I believe Litania is the other card coming out of Power of the Elements to help make this deck more playable. But if you control no monsters, or all monsters you control are Exceed monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, special summon one Ellis from your deck. You cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate this effect except Exosister monsters. And as you can see with the rest of the Exosister cards, or monsters, if a card or cards is moved out of either graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon from your extra deck one Exosister Exceed monster using this face-up card you control as an Exceed material. This is treated as an Exceed summon, and you can only use each effect of Malpha once per turn. So we'll see that the Malpha is going to get hit by the Ash here, as he doesn't want him getting that extra body on board. And then we'll see the packs activate, which one cool thing you can do here, he has the Vadis, and now he has the Litania because he's able to add the Litania off of the pack. So we'll see that the player in red is going to activate his own packs and add a copy of Malpha, in which then he can special summon the Malpha using its own effect. And from here we're going to see the special summon of Ellis, and on resolution the player in blue will not have anything, as we do see Sophia summoned here. And then we're going to see the activation of Vadis in order to bring two Exosisters out from the deck. And now he'll probably use the Litania as we see it here, in order to banish and rank up into the second Exceed monster that we'll see here, Michalis. And this one reads, cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster special summoned from the graveyard. The same thing with this one. You can only use each of the following effects of Michalis once per turn. If you control this card that was Exceed summoned this turn by using an Exosister monster as a material, quick effect, you can target one card your opponent controls or in your graveyard, or in their graveyard, banish it, and you can detach one material from this card, add one Exosister spell trap from your deck to your graveyard. So basically the effects of the Exceed monsters here, the rank 4s, they all can't be destroyed by battle by a special summon monster from the graveyard. And they all have similar detach effects at the end there. So we'll see that the Sophia or the Ellis is going to get banished there, and that's going to take us to game 2. So onto game 2, we'll see that both players are choosing to side in back row removal, which is something to point out about this deck. You do set a lot of cards, so back row removal can be strong against it. Another thing I would like to point out is, as you see the dimensional barrier, this is an Exceed deck. You don't really play any links. Depending on the variant, you may play some fusions. But so before I begin this replay, we're going to go over what I believe is the last Exosister monster. I might be wrong here, but during your main phase, you can special summon one Exosister monster from your hand. Then if you control Ellis, you gain 800 life points. If your opponent moves a card or cards out of either graveyard except during the damage step, you can special summon from your extra deck one Exosister Exceed monster using this face-up card you control as material. This is treated as an Exceed summon, and you can only use each effect of Exosister Stella once per turn, like the rest of them. So we'll see that the player in red is going to go first here, as he normal summons the Stella in order to special summon the Ellis after that because he controlled the Stella, and now he's going to go into his own Caspitel in order to search himself his own Malpha. He's going to use the Malpha in order to get himself another Ellis. Now he's going to go into his own Michalis. Now he's going to use the search effect, which will likely get him the Litania here. And from here we're going to see the first summon of the big boss monster for the Exosisters, Magnifica. And Magnifica reads that it must be summoned with the above materials, and this card can make a second attack during each battle phase. So it requires 2 rank 4 Exosister Exceed monsters, as we see there. Once per turn, quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card, banish 1 card your opponent controls. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can return 1 Exceed monster you own attached to this card to your extra deck. Then you can special summon that monster from your extra deck by using this card you control as material. This is treated as an Exceed summon, and transfer this card's materials to the summon monster. So a whole load of text there, as we finally get over reading most of these cards. And now we can excel through these matches, as we're going to see the Heartbeat's Feather Duster, we're going to see the normal summon of the Stella. The Stella will then get its effect to special summon, then the Malpha will get onto the field, and I don't know if there was a reason he didn't do it the other way around, maybe bait the Ash that way. If I'm wrong about that, you can let me know down below, but those are just my thoughts there. And we're going to see the special summon of his own Michalis, and that is going to prompt the Magnifica, which then we're going to see the chain of the Michalis along with the chain of the Magnifica to banish it. And this will get his own Michalis back to the extra deck, which will force the scoop, as you saw he had no other plays there. These are going to be pretty quick here, as you can see, because it is a very simple deck that just tries to get to grindier states in order to take advantage of its stun capabilities, along with its ability to build advantage. So before I start game 3 here, we're going to see that Arment is on board, as we see Nibiru in the players in blue's hand. And I do want to point out that because you can Exceed summon quite a bit, and you can special summon some 4s and whatnot, Nibiru can definitely come down on this deck, so don't think that you're safe from it, because this is a pretty much set 3-4 deck half the time. So to read Arment here, pay 800, then target 1 Exosister monster you control. Special summon 1 Exosister Exceed monster from your extra deck with a different name than the cards you control by using that target as material. This is treated as an Exceed summon, and transfer its materials to the summon monster. You can only activate 1 Arment per turn. You can only activate this card during your opponent's turn, unless your opponent controls a monster special summoned from the graveyard, so that is important to note. And we'll see that the Malpha is about to be summoned here, as that's going to go through. The only thing that we have here is an Imperm. The Evenly can also come in clutch depending on how things go here, as we see a set of the HFD pass, and we're going to go straight into the battle phase. Try to out the back row because you're scared of Vadis, of course. And then we can see the main phase 2 come, as we see the activation of Exosister packs. And I'm pretty sure from here we'll see the Droll, which that will definitely drop. And now we can see the special summon of the Malpha, which is going to get the Ellis. We're going to see the misplay with a take back here, which is perfectly fine, as these players are learning the deck with the new cards and whatnot. So through these videos you might see some plays like this, and I bring them here on purpose for educational purposes, because we get to game states like this where you're able to see what type of decisions you should make and what beats these boards by kind of looking at their boards and knowing what cards beat them. But definitely something that you should allow when you're testing on your own in order to really learn the deck during your first couple of days or so. So we'll see the summon of the Michalis here, as the Droll will stop any addition, so that's not going to be able to happen. We'll see the Asophiel, and this is another Exceed, which it cannot be destroyed by the activated effects of monster special summoned from the graveyard. So this is a little bit different than the cannot be destroyed by battle clause on these two. and you can only use each of the following effects of Exosister Asophiel once per turn. If this card is Exceed summoned using an Exosister monster as material, neither player can activate card effects in their graveyard this turn. Then you can detach one material from this card, then target one monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. So as you can see, it also has one of these effects here where you could detach a material, get an extra effect, while also having a similar effect to the protection of the other ones. So again, it shouldn't really be too hard to learn over time. It's just really knowing the minor differences between some of the main deck monsters and some of the extra deck monsters. So we'll see the Asophiel use the effect to bounce, and now we're going to see the summon of the Magnifica again, as this is the monster you kind of want to make the most, as if you're here, you're in a winning position. But unfortunately for the player in red, we're going to see the Nibiru drop, and he doesn't have a response for that, and without that Nibiru, I do believe he would have had that game, but unfortunately we will see that the Irene is going to get a draw here, as we're going to see a special summon of the line, or a link summon, and now he can attack and destroy. So he's crashing in order to get himself a search here, and I wonder what his plan is here, as we see the add of Ellis, which he'll special summon. He says misclick. Oh, okay, so he's declaring Malpha. But is this in the battle phase or in the main phase too? Okay, this is in the main phase too. But as you see, he still can't do that because he link summoned. So we'll see that prompts a pass here, as the Exosister packs feels like an excellent top deck, and the packs will end up adding the Malpha. From here we can see the Malpha use its effect, special summon itself and the Ellis. But as you'll see, he can't do that either because he controls the token. So he won't be able to use the Malpha, as he has to normal summon it, and now he's going just for damage. So we're going to see the turn end here, as I don't think that there's much he could do except make his own Lina if he played it, but I don't know if he did. And from here we'll see the player in blue use his own Malpha, as he's going to go into the Caspitel. The Caspitel can get its add, as he's going to use the other effect, and he's going to get Sophia here, and with Sophia in hand and anti-spell fragrance there with a chained armament that special summons Mikalis, we can see the Mikalis effect to banish the Sophia, and the Ellis will special summon itself here because he has the Caspitalis. And now we're going to see a crash, which we're going to main phase 2, as the player in blue scoops that up, as he has nothing that he can do to get over the token and the 2500 Mikalis. So a very well played game by the player in red. So on to the second match here, as you're going to see it's going to be against Tearlaments. And because we did the mirror match the first time around and got through all the cards, I wanted to take you guys through a replay where the Exosister stuff would play against stuff that it counters. And as you can see, we have a main deck goes in here, because the deck is all lights, and I guess this does hit splites and tiers pretty hard. But to start the replay, you'll see that the tier player has Salic, Rhinoheart, Shaylin, and he's going to activate the Branded Fusion, as we see the Ash Blossom hit that, and now it's Shaylin to discard the Rhino as a part of its effect, and I think it sends, not discards. But we'll see the mills of the Meta Noise, the Shaylin, and the Fusion, as now he can get Rhino Heart and the effects of Shaylin. So we'll see that Meta is also going to get its effect to get an add, and we're going to see the Fusion summons as he gets the Rhino Heart back to hand off the Meta Noise. Then he gets the Kit Kalos effect. The Kit Kalos adds Meru, and from here he can use the kick Kalos in order to go into the Meru. Then the Meru will get its effect, and along with the kick Kalos to mill 5. So that's going to be 8 mills there as we see Hoffinus use its effect to fuse. And this is where we'll see a Dragos Depelia, which is kind of like the boss monster for tiers. But we'll see that the Exosister player here is going to get Pax as a top deck, and he's going to use Prosperity, as he's going to banish 6 because he can, and he's going to mill 6. That Shifter would have been great last turn, but we'll see the Malpha and the Ellis and Litania's potential gets here. I don't think he would go for either of the Ashes here. But we'll see the Litania come out, as he does have the Sophia and the Stella in hand. And from here, we'll see the use of Pax. The Pax, I believe, will get Malpha. And now Malpha can use its effect to special summon itself and bring out an Ellis in order to get that easy rank 4 access. So as you can see, Malpha is just a huge game changer for this deck, as it's able to special summon itself and bring another level 4 out in order to get into some of these powerful Exceed monsters. As we see the Surge here off the Metalis in order to get the Litania. And now he has Vadis, Litania, and Gozen on board. So while tiers can kind of play around Gozen because they have a lot of darks, there is a lot that the Exosister player can do here. So we'll see that the Salic is going to activate now, and that's going to, I believe, send the Meru, which fusion summons the Lido Heart here, as he can use the effect and then bounce the Exceed monster there, as we see a set 3. I think that's what happened. I'm not sure. I missed what happened. So if I was wrong there, let me know in the comments below. But you have it on video to kind of see what went on there. And you'll see the Vadis be activated here because he wants to bring out the Exosister names. As he gets 2 of them on board, he is then going to probably use his Litania at one point here, as we see the normal summon of the Rhino Heart, sending the Hoffinus. Then we'll see that the Hoffinus is going to use its effect. It's going to go into Kikalos, and he's taking that back, which again is perfectly fine. Let's get proper gameplay to kind of see proper footage of the deck in order for you to learn, as we'll see that he's actually going to put back different stuff here for the Kikalos. And we'll see the Kikalos use its effect here, sending itself to the graveyard, and then he can use the Meru. The Kikalos will mill 5 along with the Meru milling 3, and seeing that is always crazy. Milling 8 so casually. I mean, I know Chaos Ruler does too, but you have to go into your extra deck to do that, which I guess you kind of do too with the Kikalos, but still mill 8. Anyways, I'll take you on to game 2. On to game 2, we see the Dark Ruler no more and the Ghost Ogre here. Both fine hits against Exosisters because the Ghost Ogre can remove their Exceed monsters, while Dark Ruler here can just out their effects. But the scary thing here is how the player in blue has the Shifter, the Winter Cherries, the Stella, and the Pax, along with a D-Barrier. So the player in blue here has a completely stacked hand, as we see the drop of the Shifter, but he can't activate because his opponent doesn't have any monsters on board. So you'll see that the Reaper is back in hand, but I probably would have waited on the Shifter in order to get a monster on board because people are playing Gamma. So that's something to note. As you'll see, the Exosister Pax is going to add the Malpha, get banished, and the Malpha can use itself in order to get the Ellis and get the rank 4, in which we'll get a big Kalos on board, and we'll then see the Exosister Sophia be added to hand. Then we can see the Stella along with the Sophia on board now, and this will get a second rank 4 momentarily, as we're going to get into Magnifica later in the turn after this ad probably of Litania here. And that's exactly what we'll see before we get into the Magnifica. And now we have the set Litania and set D-Barrier. So we're going to see the activation of Branded Fusion get hit by the D-Barrier. And from here, the player in red is going to pass turn as we see a side deck Prohibition. I don't know how much this will see play in the next format. I would probably have to test that out more, but an interesting option that we have there. We'll see the attack and onto main phase 2 as he's going to call Branded Fusion with the Prohibition, which hurts the hand a little bit because he doesn't have many starters and he will be able to get the Ghost Reaper effect at any point that the player in red has more monsters. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here as we get the special summon of the Shaylin, which will send the Hoffinus, and then it'll mill 3, which we saw Rhino Heart, and from here we'll see the Hoffinus get its effect, and I think we're going to go into Kikalos, and from there we'll see the Litania, which he is going to use the effect to banish the Kikalos. As you see, he can't do that because he hasn't Exceed summoned this turn, so that's something to remember. We'll see the Kikalos still get the add as it gets the Rhino Heart, and unfortunately the Exosister player is going to scoop. And I know some people might argue that this is a bad build here because of the Prohibitions and maybe the Ghost Reapers. I could actually see Ghost Reapers see some form of play in this deck, even if it's not the most popular, but it's something that you still may have to watch out for. And normally I've been posting wins for the decks to kind of show what they do, but Exosisters are a deck that's supposed to hard counter Tearlaments, and the reason why I'm bringing this up here is, I think I said previously in the video, people have compared this to the Evil Swarm or Ophion of the Dragon Ruler format. Now, I like to think about it kind of like a Burning Abyss mixed with Gravekeeper / Necro Valley because of all the graveyard stuff, along with its ability to Floodgate. As you can see, there is a lot of counters that are popular this format and the next that already hit Exosisters kind of hard. Watching these two matches, as you could see in the last match, the deck is susceptible to back row removal, while its ability to only end on Magnifica and pray your back row doesn't get hit, along with hoping you have hand traps that actually work, can be a little bit too much to ask for. But nonetheless, this is a deck that if your opponent is not prepared for it, it will absolutely smash them. So onto the main deck here, and I almost copied this list card for card from the YouTube channel QSIL. It's basically Fossil but with a Q. The only changes that I made were that he was maining the Brilliant Flames, but we won't have Tactical Masters until later. And he also had Effect Veilers, but because I put Crow in to replace the Brilliant Flames, I also put in the Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill in order to have a hand trap that didn't need to be sent to the graveyard, because if you played 3 Veilers and 3 Crows in a deck with Shifter, you don't want all that confliction in one hand. And on top of that, Crow is just nuts in Exosisters, as their effects can trigger when you move stuff out of the graveyard, so Crow is just a good option overall if you want to run it, as it also hits Tears and Splight during their respective combos. So as I've read through all the card effects for the Exosister cards, I'm not going to go too much into detail with the deck profile. This is just here for you to have a skeleton deck in order for you to work with when the new format starts with Power of the Elements. So we'll see the 3 Malpha, the 2 Sophios, the 3 Stellas, the 3 Ellis, the 2 Vadis, and the 2 Latania to round up your Exosister monster and trap cards. Then you have the Pax and the Armament in order to round out your Exosister cards in general. And then you'll see that there is 19 slots here to add in responsive cards, as you see with the Called by the Grave, the 3 Prosp, which you're just digging for, the Infinite Imperm, the DD Crow, the Ghost Mourner, the Ash Blossoms, and the Shifter to round out the main deck. Then you'll see the 2 Magnifica and the 3 Mikalis, the 1 Gibran, which I actually have not read yet, and we didn't see this one, but this one cannot be destroyed by the activated effects of monsters special summoned from the graveyard, and you can only use each of the following effects of Gibran once per turn. If you control this card that was Exceed summoned this turn using an Exosister monster as a material quick effect, you can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of the turn, and you can detach 1 material from this card for the rest of this turn. All Exceed monsters you control will gain 800 attack. So as you see, it has a similar protection effect as to a Sophil here, as Caspitel and Mikalis have the same protection effects. So we'll see the 2 Sophil, the 2 Caspitels, the 1 Bagu, the Zeus, the Lena, the Unicorn, the Underworld Goddess. Some options here after Power of the Elements are Artemis Slay, that may be something that is popular to side in future formats, as it is an interesting card, and you may see different extra deck usage with stuff like that, like Antis or something like Cyframe Omega, but it does take up extra deck space. Trap Trick and Magistus stuff is another thing that I've kind of seen around, but I've also heard that it's not the most competitive version of the build. The Mud Dragon, the Brilliant Flame, which, something to mention about Mr. Runes, it may be interesting to see if they become like the next Sky Striker sort of cards that we see splashed into as spells in other decks. I wouldn't be surprised, since their effects are so generic. They can even banish the top cards of opponent's deck. So that is an interesting option. And then other rank 4s, you can play Abyss Dweller, Exciton Knight if you want to bait something before going into Zeus. But truthfully, there's other rank 4s that you can go into. The Mystic Mine and Token Collector at the back end here, because we have no idea what's going to happen with the adventure stuff. Sword Soul, Mystic Mine, I think they just have to be in the video at this point in time. Anyways, that's all for today's video, and I hope this video was able to kind of inform you about what the deck does, how it plays, how it counters the opponent's strategies by messing up what can't do in the graveyard and whatnot, while benefiting from it yourself, being able to play on your opponent's turn with Latania and Vadis, stuff like that. Anyways, if you made it this far into the video, I thank you for watching. It's Bones, signing out.